Load management night for the Golden State Warriors. We'll tell you about the injury that's a little longer than the rest, but Butler, Moody, Steph Curry, Al Horford, all out. So what did we learn about the Warriors on this load management night?
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
What are they going to say now?
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is the good word, everyone? Welcome to the Locked On Warriors. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We cover the Golden State Warriors Monday through Friday. We go live after all the games, and we talk some Dubs basketball who lost tonight to the Los Angeles Lakers. Their first L in 8 preseason games, but it was expected. Both sides missing their stars. The Warriors really missing everyone. So who stepped up? We're going to talk about Brandin Podziemski's really good night. Thoughts on Jonathan Kuminga, who was thrust into the starting lineup. LJ Cryer time. He looks really good, and just the end of the roster as a whole. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. You'll get $300 in bonus bets if you win that you can use across the app. That is FanDuel. Matt Kolsky on the show today. Hoping we have good connection, my brother. The intro sounded a little bit quiet, but we'll fix the mixer in the meantime. We bid you a hello, and let's talk some Warriors who lose tonight to the Lakers, make a late comeback, but they're not able to do what they did against Portland and win.
Yeah, I mean, it was really the third quarter, right, where they had a comeback, I guess, if you want to call it that. The results don't matter. So the 6-0 in the preseason. Look, they got off to a good start. You want to play as well as you can in the preseason, but nobody cares what the final score is. I thought there were some interesting things, some good things, some less good things. Like these games where the big dudes don't play are kind of interesting in the preseason, right? I mean, we hate to see that lineup in the regular season, but there were some dudes I wanted to see, and we got to see some of them. So, thumbs up, I would say, overall.
All right, let's talk some Brandin Podziemski, who was the best Warrior on the floor today. What was the final tally? It was 23 after 3 quarters. He had 14 in the third.
Well, he didn't play in the fourth. Yeah,
in the fourth quarter, but he was awesome. Give me the final statistics. I know 23. He was flirting with a triple-double at one point. Halfway to a triple-double.
Yeah, 23, 8, and 5 was the final tally. He also only had 2 turnovers. I believe drew 1 charge, had a steal. Really good all-around floor game for Podziemski. Shot the ball really well, and just in general looked like the dude out there the most who said, all right, if the big names aren't playing tonight, I'm going to have to go out there and do some work. And from the beginning, he was aggressive and he looked really good. And that's the Brandin Podziemski you need. Look, if you can get 3 out of 7, right? It doesn't sound like it's lighting the world on fire, but it's like 42, 43% from 3. If you could basically get 3 for 7 on a nightly basis from 3 for Brandin Podziemski, that is going to go a long way towards fitting this roster together. I mean, they were good despite his struggles from 3 at the beginning of the season last year, but if he can be a consistent 3-point shooter this year, it is really going to be important for this team. They just need more dudes to knock down threes. As strange as that seems to be saying that about the Warriors, that's really what it is, whether it's Horford or Post or Healed or Seth Curry, right? They're specialists, but if Podziemski can add that, it kind of saves you having to put in those specialists, all of whom sort of come with a downside at some level.
Kuminga had 13 points. That was third on the Warriors behind Trace Jackson-Davis, who had 14 and 7 in the game. And then LJ Cryer had 11 points in his 10 minutes of playing time. We'll get into him, but we'll start with, I guess, the news of the day. It's that Moses Moody is out for the entire preseason. Calf injury, it sounds like, per Steve Kerr.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it yet. I mean, Steve Kerr says the Warriors aren't worried. I do think it's a bummer for Moody because it I'm guessing takes him out of the running for a starting position. But I don't know. I mean, as long as he's back within the first week or so, it won't have any effect on his season, I would imagine. So we'll see what happens, but I'm not too worried about that.
Podziemski specifically, we sometimes look at him like he's not an elite 3-point shooter, even though the numbers consistently over the past 3 or 4 years, maybe not elite, but hovering around 38% pretty consistently. That's good, especially when you have months that you're shooting legit 7 to 14% from deep like Podziemski did last year, and he's able to block out that noise and just continue to shoot. We remember Kerr saying, we want him shooting 10 per game. And both of us looked at each other like, I don't know if he can create that many threes for himself in a given game, but this was, a prime opportunity and 26 real minutes where he was kind of the dude, one of the main facilitators. He goes 3 of 7. And one of my favorite things about Pods today was that float game. If he can really figure out a consistent floater instead of that hook that he had rookie year, and also hit the 12 to 15 footer pretty consistently, then we're talking something, because he can navigate through traffic pretty decently. The thing is, when he tries to go too far sometimes, get too cute, instead of just pulling up from 12 feet, he gets lost in no man's land. And that is a skill that if he can really refine this year, then like Pods is going to take his game to the next level offensively.
Yeah. Look, he had 8 assists tonight too. I mean, he just really, this is why they love him, is because he does a little bit of everything. And when it's all working, he can score in the 20s for you. That,
Read it.
People can say whatever they want to say. It's a free country still for now, but that's ridiculous. All stats are fake stats in the preseason, I guess, but he was great tonight, and he's been pretty good throughout his career. I still don't know if I totally buy the 3-pointer. But like I said, if that does become consistent, that's huge. That's really huge for this team. And maybe more to the point, like, if Brandin Podziemski and Jonathan Kuminga, they played a combined, interestingly enough, precisely 48 minutes combined tonight. They had 14 assists between the two of them. Like, that just tells me the ball's hopping around. That just tells me that even without the guys who usually drive the offense, they're playing the offense that Steve Kerr wants. And I thought, look, Kuminga was fine tonight, but I think the sort of obvious effort he's putting in to try to do the things that Steve Kerr wants him to do is noteworthy. Will it last? I don't know. You know what I mean? We've been back and forth on this roller coaster so many times. I don't want to commit to anything, but that's certainly what the Warriors want to see. That's what they want, is Jonathan Kuminga looking for his shot less. Look, he was 5 for 8 tonight. 13 points in 22 minutes is not nothing. He scored.
It's the facilitating he
almost scores. He almost scores by accident, right? It's will he do the other things? And tonight he did. Not his best game overall, but he moved the ball, even though he didn't have a rebound, which, there's no real excuse for that. But I thought he was reasonably active trying to crash the boards tonight. Like, he tipped a couple balls. I don't know. It looks to me like he is trying to do what they're asking him to do. And I hope he gets some credit for that from the coaching staff once we're actually into the regular season. And I hope he continues to do that once we get into the regular season.
Let's tell you about some of the issues that the Warriors had tonight, specifically the turnovers, and Kuminga played a big part in that. We'll talk about the balance between just being a playmaker and having a bunch of assists and really trying to perfect that part of your game in the preseason while also being over aggressive and sometimes just lazy and sloppy. The difference between all those coming up on Locked On Warriors. First, let's tell you about America's #1 sportsbook. That is FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app today. If you're a new customer, how about $5? That's all you need to bet. You'll get $300 in bonus bets. That's a great perk to the app. Also, just the fact that you can hop in on live lines, it makes watching football even more exciting when you got a little something riding on the action. So whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. Player props, money line spreads, futures, They got it all. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Warriors and Lakers, the 21st. Before LeBron was announced out, last I checked, the Warriors were dogs in that game. We will give you the spread as we get closer to tip on the 21st. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at Peloton. I got a Peloton, and I'm going to tell you why you should get one as well. The new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus is their most advanced equipment yet. It's designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move. Whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors, the Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus is the move. You got real-time strength coaching, makes you track your reps, suggests the right weights, and corrects your form. It's safer and it's smarter. They got personalized class recommendations. So feel the energy. Let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. All right, so Kuminga, I thought his day was a little bit different. You look like you're in a hostage situation right now with your video. But anyways, we still got you there. I thought the one thing that was different about Kuminga today as compared to the last game was the lack of inbounds turnovers. Like, I felt like there were some lazy turnovers in the previous game against Portland that just looked like his mind wasn't 1,000% in it on certain plays, specifically the beginning of plays. You know, right as the Warriors would inbound it, there was a bad pass. There was, just not really moving towards the ball, whatever it may be. Tonight, it was an aggression that led to some turnovers, which I think is what we need to see from Kuminga. You can't fix, build Rome in a day. You're asking him to play a different role and become a better passer. And he made some great passes. In the open floor, the bounce pass up ahead to Buddy, had a nice give and go to Spencer, made some great plays, got to clean up the turnovers. What'd you think of him as a playmaker and kind of a point forward?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. There have been some sloppy turnovers with that. The inbounds turnovers against Portland. I guess my question is, how many times in his career before now has Jonathan Kuminga been asked to even be a part of that portion of basketball? Like, he's not a point guard. I don't think he has a lot of experience bringing it up, but his handle is better than it has been. It looks much tighter. I think, he has a tendency to drive into trouble more than he should. He's got a ways to go if you want him to initiate your offense. It's not clear to me exactly what his role will be once again. But I think what's notable now in preseason is that he's trying. Like, you cannot look at the way he's playing and look at him like he's not trying to do what they're asking him to do. He's very obviously trying to do what they're asking him to do. We can argue about whether it's for show and it's preseason and all that, but like, he's doing what, the idea that he's stat padding is ridiculous because he only shot the ball 8 times. And other than, I think, one slightly rushed 3, they were all pretty much within the offense. Like, he had a couple isolation drives where he absolutely abused guys. He had that dunk where he, threatened Jake LaRavia's children.
Man, that was a big time cram.
Well, he was angry because he had turned it over like a couple possessions before, but still, like, he can't get on the floor for more than 10 minutes without showing you why he's such an interesting player and prospect. But if we're just talking about the opportunity he may or may not have this season with the Golden State Warriors, I have to say he is doing the things you want him to do.
0 rebounds, though. That's interesting because he's been rebounding it pretty well this preseason.
He has, and I didn't think it was a bad effort night on the board. Sometimes it's just weird bounces. A couple times he boxed a guy out and somebody else got the rebound. I didn't think it was as bad as 0 rebounds looks in the stat sheet, but I will tell you, every time it says 0 in the stat sheet under rebounds for Jonathan Kuminga, Steve Kerr is getting angry. So look, if hopefully it's more steps forward than steps back as far as that goes, but I really think it should matter that he is doing what he can to do what they're asking. You know, that's all he can do at this point. Now that he's here.
You were saying earlier, you kept using the word trying. You're like, he's trying. And I'm like, well, that's kind of the bare minimum of basketball, but I know what you mean.
Right.
He's trying to, it's not an effort thing. It's just he's trying to, this isn't the way he plays, right? So you're asking him to kind of, instead of putting his head down and trying to make a move for himself, like he's never been the main facilitator. And that's the thing about Giannis where, because I was watching him tonight against the Bulls a little bit on the split screen, or I guess before the game started, Kylan, shout out, a host of this show called the Chicago Bulls game tonight with Stacey King.
Kylan.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I'm so jealous. I got to talk to her about what that was like. Stacey is like, I would love to just sit next to Stacey, man.
Said he was the man and extremely supportive, but was watching a little bit of that game, and Giannis is so good. There's a reason why the Bucks had the best 3-point percentage in the league last year, right? It's because he puts his head down, and you can't stop him. And the only way to stop him is to get the ball out of his hands, and he's going to find someone clean every time. And I think Kuminga has a little bit of that in him to where, you know, you're going to lock him down, and there's going to be someone open in the corner. If he can kick, who's going to knock it down? Will Richard. He's not going to knock him down much. He's not a great 3-point shooter. He has gotten the approval from Steve Kerr, though, considering he played second most on the team with 23 minutes, was 1 of 6 from 3, had 5 points. I keep watching him, Kolsky, and there are a lot of players like this where you watch their mannerisms and they just remind you of someone. And I don't know who it is. I feel like it's someone I covered at Kentucky, maybe like a Keldon Johnson, but just the way that he moves reminds me of someone so much that I can't think of. Someone said Damian Lee, and I was like, I don't know if it's Damian Lee, but there's someone that he has the exact same like movement, and it's driving me crazy.
Well, I don't have an answer for you. Apologies. I think Damian Lee is a bad comp because the thing that has impressed me about Will Richard is like he really looks pretty big out there. I mean, he's obviously on the younger side. He's thin, but he looks long and taller than I expected on an NBA court. The thing about Damian Lee always looked small out there. He was never a plus defender because of that. I think Will Richard, if I'm trying to project what is he to this team in like the near term future, not tomorrow, probably not even this year, but to me, he looks like he's your Gary Payton replacement. Will the shot come around? Boy, it looks terrible. And I don't just mean the fact that he was like clunking it off the backboard tonight. Like it's not a pretty jumper. That doesn't mean it can't work, but he's not been a great shooter in college. He was a fine shooter in college, and he looks overwhelmed from the NBA distance. But that doesn't mean he can't develop that. That's obviously part of the goal. And I think on defense, he has really long arms, and he is super active. Like he is doing the right things to be a defensive contributor. And to your point, it's not just the minutes. I mean, anybody can play the most minutes on a night like tonight. It's the fact that he was one of the first guys off the bench. I believe in the first substitution, he came on with Guy and Gary. And I don't think Will Richard is going to play a ton. But the fact that they gave him a real contract and not a two-way means he's available every night. And the fact that Kerr is already, again, it's preseason, but the fact that he is playing Richard in combination with the guys that he would play with if he did play in the regular season, you know what I mean? Like when Cryer and Bolden get out there, they're playing with Trace and Pat Spencer and Jackson Rowe, right? That's not a lineup we're going to see in the regular season. But in a game where Gary Payton sits out or Brandin Podziemski sits out or whatever, could I see Will Richard with Kuminga and Draymond and Quentin Post? Why not? Like it's pretty interesting. And I think, again, like the sort of thing you write down, the fact that Kerr put him in the first quarter tonight.
One of the things that I wrote down is why LJ Cryer wasn't in the first quarter, or at this point playing him in some real minutes and giving him an opportunity to actually showcase his abilities, because he's looked good. And just about every opportunity that he's had dating back to Summer League. And this is the time to give him some run. We're going to talk about his minutes, I guess you could say, in the second half, and then the end of the roster. Who's going to be fighting for jobs? What do we think of Gee, Post, etc.? That's straight ahead. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That is why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. It's built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, now's the time to get some Monarch. It does the heavy lifting for you. Link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, smart spending, feel in control of your money. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser. You'll get half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com using code LOCKEDONNBA.
And most importantly, he a dog.
We need more dogs.
All right, man. LJ Cryer, who I believe won a national championship at Baylor and then played in another one for the Houston Cougars, saw his best days with Houston, could really shoot it at the collegiate level, was a part of an unbelievable defense, and appears to be able to do both those things at the league level, defend a little bit, and then really shoot it from deep. He was 4 of 7, 3 of 5, had a couple of assists, did not turn it over, did have 3 personal fouls in his 10 minutes of play, but hey, you get 6 of them. What did you think about LJ Cryer's performance? Is there any reason that we should be talking about LJ Cryer before the C block of this show?
Yes, I think so. I think we should be talking about LJ Cryer being on the team instead of Pat Spencer.
You have it out for Pat, man.
I don't. I have it out for the Warriors playing good basketball and having the best possible roster. And I do not understand the appeal of Pat Spencer. I do not think a Hall of Fame NBA coach should need a security blanket. What does Pat Spencer do after however many years on the end of the bench that LJ Cryer can't do other than airball? Seriously.
The answer's nothing. LJ Cryer is a better basketball player.
He's a better basketball player. And Cryer is small.
I don't know how Cryer didn't get drafted, man. But
listen, is Pat Spencer a defender in the NBA? No, he's not. He is not a defender in the NBA, and at least LJ Cryer defended in college. Yes, he's small. He's probably given up a couple inches to Pat Spencer, but he's a legit shooter, which Pat Spencer has never been and is not now. He airballed tonight too. Like, I do not get it. And with Guy, at least when I watch Guy Santos, I see a guy who is an NBA level offensive rebounder. And yes, you would like your players to do more than one little thing on the court. But I get why Guy is here, because sometimes he can knock down the three. And if you put him out there, he changes the energy on the floor and he can really rebound. Pat Spencer has no NBA skills. What he is aggressive and confident enough to beat the absolute end of other guys' benches. Right? Like, we like Pat Spencer because he's aggressive and confident. And I'm sure he's a great listener to Steve Kerr at practice, which I don't mean to belittle that. But LJ Cryer has NBA skills that I would like to get a look at. Now, this is maybe the key point that someone makes in the chat, right? Is neither of these guys should be on the floor. Hopefully that's Seth Curry. And I think if I'm LJ Cryer, I'm looking at Seth Curry as the guy I'm trying to emulate if I want to be an NBA player, right? A smaller guy, knockdown three-point shooter, not the best defender, but good enough to stay on the floor at his size. So, I'm sorry that I come off like a Pat Spencer hater. I honestly have nothing against the guy. I just don't think he's one of the 15 best available players for the Warriors.
Thing is, Kolsky spent some time in Evanston, Illinois, which is where Pat Spencer spent his time for his education at Northwestern. So
anybody from Northwestern who makes the league is good by me. I do not hate Pat Spencer. what I hate, honestly, what I hate is
I think LJ Cryer has better upside that you don't know, and now is the time to figure that out because you don't expect any of them to be a part of this rotation. But what if LJ Cryer is that diamond in the rough that surprises you? Pat Spencer's not going to be that. You kind of know what he is to a certain degree, and that is someone that you'd rather not play in significant minutes unless it's to headbutt Şengün and get the place fired up, which was awesome, by the way.
Someone in the chat is saying Pat Spencer is on a two-way. I don't know if that's true. Is that true? Oh, he is. Okay.
Yeah, this year he is. Yeah.
So at least he's not a real contract spot. But, we'll see. We'll see. And that may be the interesting thing, right? Is which one of those guys gets the call up from Santa Cruz more often? Like, let's not kid ourselves. This is true with Will Richard, too. I mean, I like him. Clearly, Steve Kerr likes him more than you might expect for where he was drafted and like how he profiles depth-wise on this team. But if all goes to plan, all of these guys are in Santa Cruz more often than not, and that's fine. You want LJ Cryer and Will Richard playing minutes, and that's also their opportunity to show Steve Kerr and company that, like, I'm better than Pat Spencer. So go prove it.
We didn't talk about Trace Jackson Davis, saved him for the very last subject of the show, but he quietly went for 14 and 7 and a couple of blocks and 0 turnovers in his 20 minutes, was 7 and 9 from the floor with 3 offensive rebounds. Kind of the forgotten man on the Warriors, considering in his rookie year, he was playing significant minutes with Draymond Green suspended, and the Warriors were winning some games. And
does that remind you of anyone, Chuck?
Who specifically are you thinking of?
Somebody who just left? I mean, for how many years Loon was in and out of the rotation? Everybody talked about all the things he couldn't do. And all he did was, whenever they called his number, did his absolute best to perform precisely the role that was asked of him, which usually was set some screens, play some defense, and do your best to finish inside. TJD has a long way to go to become the screen setter and like offensive participant in terms of intelligence that Loon was, but he's a much better athlete. And he can finish much better just naturally. He's not quite the defender that Loon was, but he's gets up around the rim and could block more shots. So, I think TJD has a role on this team. He is really the only bouncy big guy that they have now. I mean, unless you count Kuminga, but in terms
Speaking of bouncy big guys, man, you see Jimmy Wiseman's having a pretty decent preseason.
I hope he has a great year. Best of luck.
Yeah.
I'll believe it when I see it. Best of luck to James Wiseman. But I do think there's a role. I think that Steve Kerr has shown us for years that there are nights where he just wants the big to set screens and play defense and not bother him. Right? And that, to me, seems like what TJD can be for this team moving forward. In the same way that I see, within the next year or two, maybe Will Richard becomes your Gary Payton. Like, all these role players need to turn over at some point. And I think they're doing a pretty good job of lining up potential replacements.
Is there a more impactful game in NBA history, or impactful player in a game in NBA history, than Draymond Green, who, if you take a few stars off his team, becomes just irrelevant? Like, if you don't have good players around Draymond, like I know defensively he's still going to bring it, but 2 points today, 4 turnovers, 4 assists, 1 rebound, 1 of 2 from the floor. Like, with Steph Curry, unbelievable. With Jimmy Butler, usually pretty unbelievable, but you take a few of those guys out of there, and it's crazy how drastically different you look at Draymond being your second or third guy out there.
Yeah, well, it's funny. There's lots of guys like that, but I don't know that any of them were ever Hall of Famers. I don't know that any of them were ever defensive players of the year, right? I mean, it's the Robert Ory prototype in a way. An incredible connecting winner. It's just Draymond can get to such a higher level, largely because of what he does defensively, but also like Robert Ory couldn't bring the ball up the floor and play point guard for a whole quarter for you the way Draymond. I mean, there's not a lot of Hall of Famers who didn't score, right? And in order to be that, you have to do every other thing at such an incredibly high level and operate at such a brilliant level in terms of IQ. He's one of a kind, man. You know, he's one of those one of one athletes. And yeah, usually when we say that, we're talking about the GOATs, and Draymond's obviously not in that conversation, but he is absolutely a one of one, and there'll never be another like him.
Is Gordon Hayward said on our program the other day, he's like a GOAT role player, you know, where if you stick him in the exact role that you need, like he's gonna put you over the top. You need a Draymond on your team, but if he's your second or third guy, like you saw tonight, he's not going to give you a ton there. But
no.
What he does, man, is he can get the defense in disarray. The fact that when he's playing the five, he's bringing the ball up the floor, and just the matchups and the confusion and the high processing skills and the ability to thread the needle. And he's aggressive. And I mean, that's a dynamic that when you have all the Warriors out there still to this day plays, especially with Jimmy. But no Jimmy today, no Steph, no Moses Moody, no Al Horford. And the Warriors lose by 10, 126-116. The good from the game, Trace Jackson-Davis was good. Brandin Podziemski was really good. There was some good from Jonathan Kuminga, but he's got to clean up the turnovers. And then, you know, Quentin Post, 3 of 7 from deep. LJ Cryer was good. And according to Matt Kolsky today, Pat Spencer was not as good as LJ Cryer. And the 19 and 10 should be flipped. Cryer getting 19, Spencer 10. But again, this is preseason banter. We'll be talking Seth Curry, D'Anthony Melton when that day comes.
Fingers crossed. Then, those are the dudes, yeah.
Yep. Until then, Kolsky, you have yourself a good night. Chat. Appreciate you for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow. Locked On Warriors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
9 days.